Never take any wrong action lightly. It is true that good deeds obliterate bad deeds. So if you sully the mirror of the heart, and we sully it by doing bad deeds, we can clean it, we can polish it. But it will, even though it will be polished, it will never be exactly like it would have been. So Imam al-Ghazali says, every time you do a bad deed, you lose a part of the rational soul that you never get back. And what he wants to emphasize is that don't go one step forward and one step back. One step forward and one step back. A lot of people do that. They do something wrong, then they do tawbah. Okay, great. The tawbah has now removed that. And you're back at the beginning point. But then you're going to keep doing back and forth like this. This harms us very much. And you want to become really pure. And people who keep themselves pure, they have amazing hearts. They have really amazing hearts. So then he says, وَالْعَزْمُ أَلَّا يَرْجِعَ. Okay? And to be determined never to do it again. Okay, again, we are human beings, we are weak, so we repent from certain things that we really, really repent from sincerely, and then in a month we find ourselves doing it again, right? So what do? You repent again. You immediately stop, and you determine, I'm not going to do this again, right? And you go ahead. Then he says, verse number 14, وَرَدُّ ظُلْمٍ مُمْكِنٍ وَالنَّدَمُ وَبِاجْتِنَابِ الْإِثْمِ يُمْحَى اللَّمَمُ. Very beautiful. Okay, and 3, to return what has been wrongfully taken. You know, that's not really a good word. Destroyed, we could say as well. Utilized, maybe, if possible. He says to return any oppression, meaning anything that you've done oppression in, if it's possible. And he means by that, you know, sometimes it's not possible. You know, for example, it may be that you did injustice to someone by saying something about them that you shouldn't have said. So it would be good if you could tell them you did it and ask their forgiveness, but sometimes we can't do that. Because sometimes if we tell the people that I called you such and such, then that will be a much greater calamity than the fact that we did it, right? And sometimes also we're not able to redress the things that we've done wrong, but usually we can. And if, for example, we've robbed money or we've embezzled money or whatever, you either give it back to the person, or if you can't do that because maybe they've died or whatever, then you have to give it in charity. But you know, there's no free meal. It's not like, well, you know, I robbed all this money, but I've done tawbah now. Okay, give the money back. Oh, wait. You know, I wasn't thinking about that. No, you have to think about that. Okay, so to return whatever was wrongfully appropriated, maybe, or taken if possible. That's number 3. And 4, to regret the act. Okay, so really regret that you did it. You know, like, I'm really sorry that I did this. There's one of the great sheikhs of West Africa who's called Al-Bakka'i, means the big crier. He cries all the time. Al-Bakka'i was a big, powerful sheikh. There are 2 Bakka'is, the grandfather and the grandson. And they're big Qadiri sheikhs. But Al-Bakka'i, they say, why did he cry all the time? He always had a tear in his eye. And they say he grew up in a very pure environment. He was very upright. And all of his life, he never missed the first takbir in the mosque in the prayer. And then one day, he missed the first takbir. He didn't even miss the prayer. He maybe missed 1 rak'ah. And yet, you know, he felt the regret for that the rest of his life. Is that because he went too far, he overdid it? Was he a perfectionist? No, it's because, again, given the purity of his heart, he knew the right of Allah. And in doing the first takbir, he wasn't seeking a reward. He was seeking to fulfill the right of Allah. And so it's like, I never will be able to fulfill this right. And so this shows that his heart is really alive. That's why he's held in really high esteem. He's one of the great awliya. In fact, he was buried in a valley, and a long time after he died, generations after he died, a flash flood came and it revealed his grave. And they found him intact. This happens a lot in our history, right? Imam Malik tells us in the Muwatta that over about 100 years after the Battle of Uhud, the decision was made to get all the bodies of the shuhada and put them in the big grave that they're in today. Because they were buried in different places, and a lot of them were buried in ravines. They didn't have time to dig the graves. And then they would be exposed if there was a big rain. So in digging the bodies up and reburying the bodies, they found the body of a father and son who were both killed at Uhud. And they were embracing each other. They were hugging each other. And Imam Malik says in the Muwatta, and the Muwatta is an extremely authentic book, he says in it that nothing had changed except one of them, a little of his ear had deteriorated. That was all. Everything else was just like it was. And they tried to take the father and son apart so they could bury them separately, and every time they would take them apart, they would come back and hug each other again. So they'd try to do it, but they would come back and hug each other again, so they buried them that way. So, we have lots of examples of that in our history. But when Sheikh Baka'i was dug up, they found out that he was still crying. He still had the tear that was coming down his cheek. In any case, may Allah enable us to do tawbah. So it has 4 conditions, right? Stop the thing immediately. Don't wait. Don't wait. And then be determined not to do it again. And regret the fact that you did it. You ought to be able to cry about this. If you can't cry, it means like maybe you don't really regret it, right? And this is why also the wrongs that we do, and we all do wrongs because we're human beings, we're weak, but they're the things that you don't want to forget. The good deeds you do, those you should forget. In fact, you usually do forget them if they were accepted, because they're taken up to heaven. So you don't remember. And a lot of good people, it's like they don't see that they're good at all. This is a mercy of Allah to them. He takes their deeds up, they don't see them. And they're not thinking like, I did this. That's a hypocrite. Okay, so the good deeds, it's very good to forget the good deeds. You don't want to ever see yourself in terms of how good you are, because that will harm you. But in terms of the mistakes we made and the failures we've made and the idiocies of our lives, we don't want to ever forget that, because that keeps us humble. That keeps us humble. And like when you want to define yourself, or I want to define myself, you don't want to ever define yourselves in terms of what the people think about you, that you're so good and so forth. Well, may we be good. But the thing is that you know about yourself things you've said and done that are private. You don't tell anybody that, and you don't forget that, because that's who you are. You're the person who lost hope. You're the person who despaired, right? And that will keep you strong, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Gives us humility. Then he says, وَبِجْتِنَابِ الْإِثْمِ يُمْحَلَّمَمُ. By avoiding major sins, al-ithm, he means iniquity here. By avoiding iniquity, it's actually iniquity, but I called it major sins, iniquity. By avoiding major sins, yumhallamamu, minor wrongs are erased. So this is again possible for Allah, that if you will avoid the major sins, and of course if we do a major sin, we've got to repent from that. Got to do that. But if you will lead a good life, praying and fasting and doing good and avoiding the major sins, then Allah will erase the minor ones. You'll also ask forgiveness for them as well, but they will be erased. This is possible for Allah. He does in creation whatever He wills, and He can be as generous to the believers as He wills to be. Again, the Khawarij said, you know, that God will punish the kabira. He must. And this was a big problem, you know, big problem for them. And we say, no, we don't accept that at all. If we do major sins and He wants to put us in the fire, that's the way it will be. And that may be the way that it is with most people. Don't take chances. But if He wills to forgive you, He will. And all of you know the story of the criminal from the children of Israel who killed 99 people. He was a murderer. And then he comes to a scholar and he said, like, I killed 99 people. Is there any hope for me? No. I said, okay, so let's make it 100. And then he goes to another scholar who is a little bit more intelligent and a little bit probably wiser, and he also knows more about Allah. And he says, okay, I've killed 100. Is there any chance that Allah will forgive me? He said, yes. Allah forgives whatever He wills. And then he tells him, but leave this community, because it's not good for you. And go to another one which is good for you. And as you know in the story, when he's going to that other community, having done tawbah, then he dies. The angels of death come to get him, and the angels of punishment and the angels of forgiveness argue over his soul, who should get it. And then Allah sends an angel who says that if he's closer to the city that he was going to, then forgive him. And even in some transmissions it says, and Allah shortened the distance. So Allah is very forgiving. We believe in that. That's a fundamental belief of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and it is also a fundamental tool on the path to Allah, because we believe in the mercy of Allah and we are not judgmental of other people. We don't go around saying they're kafirs, they're kafirs, they're kafirs. Then he says, وَمَنْ يَمُتْ وَلَمْ يَتُبْ مِنْ وِزْرِهِ فَوِّدْ إِلَى اللَّهِ جَمِيعَ أَمْرِهِ وَمَنْ يَمُتْ وَلَمْ يَتُبْ مِنْ وِزْرِهِ فَوِّدْ إِلَى اللَّهِ جَمِيعَ أَمْرِهِ. And whoever dies, meaning whoever dies as a believer, because that's what he's talking about, that's understood. Whoever dies and has not repented from the burden of his great wrongdoing, he's not repented from his sins, relegate to God the entirety of his affair. All right, so you know Muslims who drink and who maybe do drugs and who go out with women, or women who go out with men, right? It happens in our community. We know people who do things like that, and then if they die, what do you say about these people? Oh, he's going to hell. No, we don't say that. So whoever dies without having repented from the burden of his sins, we don't have any evidence that he repented, then relegate his matter to God. Turn it over to God. This is not your business. So you don't know what's going to happen to him. Yes, you can pray for him. It's very likely that he or she will go to the fire. It's very likely that they may be in the fire for a long time. You don't envy them. But nevertheless, we are not judgmental. You turn the matter over to Allah. Allah will forgive them if He wills. And that's possible. So again, we're talking about what is possible regarding Allah. Don't impose your ethical, moral standards. You may be very rigorous. You may say that, well, I wouldn't forgive him, but you're not God. You're not the one who created him. Okay, so this is really beautiful. And these are the beliefs of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And that's why Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, throughout history, they are usually in the middle, and they are usually very humane, and they are usually very judgmental. And that's why today when we have in our Muslim communities people that are extremely rude and extremely unwelcoming and really judgmental and in your face about everything. You know, it's like, you didn't ever study this, did you? You were never brought up to learn this, were you? And they aren't. And these are people who have not been trained. They've not been disciplined. This is not our way. We are not brutal people. We are not rude people. We are not judgmental people. We are humble people. And this is why also the traditional Muslim world, you know, may Allah preserve it, it seems to become less and less every year. You know, you go to Mauritania now, and they've got dishes, satellite dishes out in front of their tents. That's a horror. You know, and Mauritanians, you know, they tend to be very simple people, very, very simple. They have profundity, but they also can really be hurt when they are exposed to all of the glamour and glitter of Western civilization, because they never even imagined that that existed. I knew Mauritanians who ate grapes and figs for the first time in Medina, and who would say that we didn't know that existed here, because they don't have that in Mauritania. They don't have grapes, they don't have figs. They have dates and meat, that's about it, and water. Okay, so, but in the traditional Muslim world, people are extremely forgiving, extremely non-judgmental. And I've seen a lot of communities like that. You know, and one of the sheikhs that I had who was a great sheikh, you know, for 19 years, Sheikh Muhammad Abu Bakr Hammuddin. He was really strong, very majestic, followed the Sharia 100%. And people would come to visit him. And he was like an angel, really. People would come to visit him. You know, I would sometimes go get the door. They would ring the door, I would go get the door. And, you know, people would be at the door who are of his ethnic background, you know. And you see this man, you've never seen him before. He maybe smells like a cigarette. He maybe even, you can catch the smell of alcohol in his breath. And you take this person in and you think, like, this man, like if we asked him to recite Fatiha, he wouldn't be able to do it. And the sheikh would take people like that, and his habit was to give you milk. That's his custom. So he would bring the milk, he would sit in front of the people like a servant, he would pour him the milk, and then they put lots of sugar in the milk. That's what they would do. And then he gives it to him, and he treats him as if he were a saint, right? Not like, who are you? And like, you've never prayed, have you? And how are you with your wife? And how are you with your family? They're not like that. That's not the way we are. We are forgiving people. We are humble people, and you don't have a chance on the spiritual path if you're not that way. That's why the way of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is a way also that opens up infinite vistas of spiritual development. And it comes out of these kind of beliefs also, that we are not judgmental. Whoever dies and has not repented from the burden of his sin, turn his matter over to Allah. Don't speak evil of him or her. Don't say that he's in the fire, she's in the fire, because you don't know. And you don't know even how they died. Maybe in their last moments they did tawbah, right? Maybe Allah forgave them everything. So be careful what we say. And we're not God. And we don't pretend to be God. And that's the thing also about these Muslims who are in our face. It's like, who in the world are you? Do you realize what is one of the greatest sins? The kabira. We talked about kabira. Okay, what is a major sin? Well, we know. Adultery, fornication, robbery, false witness, right? And you can name some other ones. There's one that's much bigger than that. And that is to talk about this religion in ignorance. If you say this is haram and you don't know, that is just like an act of adultery. Or you say that this is obligatory and it's not, that is like an act of robbery. And this is what we have in our community today. You know, I'm in Chicago. There was a brother, African-American brother, who came into Islam, and he's got his earrings, his golden earrings in his ears. And he made wusul, he made wudu, he took the shahada, he goes into the mosque to pray, and some uncle comes up in his face and tells him, terrible things. And you can't have this is haram, this is haram. Like, who are you? First of all, we have a whole science of enjoining right and forbidding wrong, and you don't say a word. And what's going to be the effect of this? And secondly, is that true? Because for something to be haram, everybody has to agree that it's haram. And Imam al-Shafi'i doesn't agree, because he says that if it is covered with gold, but it's not gold itself, you can wear it. Makruh. So did you know that opinion? So you've got nothing to say. And what that man did was a major sin. And he thinks he's a saint. What's going on? See, this is moral decay. And we have got to learn to be quiet. We had a sister that came into Islam, and she had, astaghfirullah, she was wearing fingernail polish. Can you believe it? Fingernail polish. Can you think of anything worse? And so there's women, aunties, who are all over her. Your wudu is not valid. Look, this is an opinion that some schools have and others don't have. You've got nothing to say. And they drove her out of Islam. And they drove the man out of Islam too. He said, look, I did not become a Muslim to be talked to like this. And he walks out of the mosque. That is a major, major, major sin. And it happens in our communities all the time. That's one of the reasons why in the United States we have the Ta'leef Collective. The Ta'leef Collective with Brother Osama Cannon that tries to create safe spaces for Muslim men and women, converts, and also people that come from the backgrounds like most of you who may not have been practicing. And then they come back into the faith and they found out, of all the places in the United States, the place where I am the least welcome is not the bar, it's the mosque. What is going on? This is a really, really serious problem. Okay, and this is ignorance, and this is a major sin. Okay, then Wafa, what did you want to ask? So the question is, can you ask forgiveness for people? Yes, you can. In Ahlul Sunnah and Jama'ah, we don't have issues with that. Okay, we don't have issues with that. I know a great Moroccan, some of you know him, you may know him, Moulay Hashim. Do you know Moulay Hashim? So a lot of you know Moulay Hashim. He's a great, great man. And, he had a sister who died maybe 1980. I met him, not too long after that. And his sister didn't pray. And she was a good woman, but she just didn't pray, and probably she wasn't bad, but she was very lax about her religion. And she died young and unexpectedly. And so he was very worried about her. And he had particular du'as that he would make and dhikr that he would make in the last part of the night. And then one night he was drowsy, he'd done his dhikr, and she appeared to him. She came out of the barzakh, and that's possible. She came out of the barzakh, the intermediary world. And he asked her, he said, "How are you?" And she said, "I have seen my book, and I am unhappy. I'm not happy." And then she had to say, she had to leave. She said, "And I have to go now." And so he was really sad. And then he began to do everything for her that he could. He would give sadaqah on her behalf. He would read the Quran on her behalf. All of that is possible. None of these were issues. But again, it's like the rigid people. They also want to shut the doors of benefiting others. When a person dies, it's very good to stay, if you're at their side, to say La ilaha illallah. Don't tell them, say La ilaha illallah, because they may not be able to do it. They may be preoccupied with other things. The throes of death are very difficult. They can be very, very difficult. But you say La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, so that they hear it. And there are people say, bid'ah, bid'ah. What? Bid'ah, I just want to help my brother out. I just want to help my sister. You take the body to the grave. We would say, La ilaha illallah. No, bid'ah, be quiet. You know, it's like what? It's like, you know, you don't want to help anybody, do you? You want us all to go to hell, don't you? You know, where are you going to end up? Where are you going to end up? Because that's the thing. When you're rigid like that, then, you know, man la yarham la yurham. As the Prophet said, those who are not merciful, no mercy will be shown to them. Nas'Allah al-afwa al-afiyah. Then he says, لا بالعذاب للمسيء يقطع والكفر والتخليد عنه يمنع. So again, he's talking about what is possible about Allah. He can forgive. So he says, لا بالعذاب للمسيء يقطع والكفر والتخليد عنه يمنع. We have no definite conviction that the wrongdoer will be punished. Okay, we should say have no definite conviction that the wrongdoer will be punished. Okay, in other words, again, leave it to Allah. That's what he's saying. Like, you know, this person was really bad. They did bad things. They said bad things. But you don't know where they're going. So don't have any conviction in your heart that they are going to be punished, because maybe they won't be punished. Maybe Allah will forgive them. That's possible. He does in His kingdom whatever He wills, not what you will, right? وَالْكُفْرُ وَالتَّخْلِيدُ عَنْهُ يُمْنَعُ. This is really important. And disbelief and eternal punishment in the fire are not to be attributed to him. So he's adding that, see. So for example, the person was a Muslim. Maybe they did bad things. A lot of Muslims are that way. And they've died, so you don't know where they're going and don't have any conviction in your heart that definitely he's in the fire. Because you don't know. That's not your business. You're not a Lord. And you cannot attribute kufr to them. That you cannot say he's a kafir. See, we're really careful about that. So again, it's like when you see people today, it's like what they relish more than anything else. It's saying, he's a kafir, he's a kafir, he's a kafir. You have these beasts, you know, on Egyptian television, saying everybody's a kafir with his big long beard. It's like he owns Islam, right? It's like, I own it. I don't know about you. Your beard's not very long, you know, but my beard, look at my beard, way down to here, right? I've got to be pious. No, anybody who's got a beard and doesn't shave it, it will grow, okay? But that's what they do. It's like, he's a kafir, he's a kafir, she's a kafir, and these people among themselves are no more merciful. And that's the way the Khawarij were too. They say, everybody's a kafir. And then they say, but you're also one. You know, we were fighting together, but then we disagree. You're a kafir as well. We see that happens in a lot of these mosques that people like that have. They divide, they divide, they divide again. So this is a curse. And this is clear deviation from the path of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We are not like that. We are humble people and forgiving people. You cannot attribute kufr to him, and you cannot say that he will be eternally punished. Because everything we know about him or her was that they were Muslims. And whoever has a mustard grain of faith in their heart will be forgiven. Right? We know that from the hadith of the Prophet. So they're not disbelievers. And they may be in the fire for a long time, and you don't want to be in the fire for a single moment. Okay? But they will not be in the fire forever. They may be there for a long time. Who will be the last person to come out of the fire? Well, we'll see, inshallah. And may we never go there at all. You never want to go to the fire for a single instant. You can't bear it. You can't even bear to look at it. If you see the garden, you know, the whole world will wilt before your eyes. And the garden does not look that different from this world, especially this beautiful world. This is a beautiful, beautiful place. The garden doesn't look that different, but it is very different because of the way it's structured. That there are different manifestations. In the garden, if you see it, this world really wilts, not beautiful anymore. And the fire, ooh. So we don't want to go to the fire for a single instant. And we don't want to be judged for a single instant.